Hello, my name's Ellie Fritchell, and I want to talk about something that's not really thought about but is the leading waste product throughout the world. 500 billion single-use store-provided plastic bags are used every year throughout the world. Restrictions should be enforced nationally on plastic bags because of the longer environmental impact that they do have. Everyone shops daily and probably doesn't even think about putting their items in plastic bags, but personally, I have grew up using reusable plastic bags because my family has always used them and it's become more of a habit for myself. So today in this speech, I want to highlight the impact of manufacturing of plastic bags, where the plastic bags go after use by the consumer, and then how we can work to decrease the amount of plastic waste that is being released into our environment. So first, I want to highlight the production of plastic bags. Millions and millions of plastic bags are produced throughout the world every day, and it is done by breaking down of fossil fuels through several different factories. Fossil fuels are used to create this thin, flexible material that plastic bags are made out of. And according to David Brand, who works with the humanitarian organization called Global Citizen, he showed that ethylene gas is used to produce this polymer called polyethylene resin. And so it just shows that fossil fuels are being broken down so that they can create this resin, and then it releases so many harmful pollutants into the air that affect public health. So then, after this resin is produced, it is shipped to several different factories throughout the country or throughout the world, and they can flatten it out, make logos. So it just shows that this increases the amount of factory work and the amount of factories that are involved, and then this can also, again, increase the amount of pollution that is released into the air. So after I talked about the manufacturing of plastic bags, I want to highlight where they go after they are used by the consumer. So obviously plastic bags have a very negative impact on the environment and wildlife. The plastic bags are broken down into toxic microplastics, which are just small little pieces of plastic where they are in our landfills and they can get into our water sources through runoff, and they can also get absorbed into our soil. So this makes it very harmful because all of these things the general public are consuming, and so these unnecessary chemicals are being consumed by society. So the Conserving Now organization described plastic bags as photodegradable, which means that plastic bags do not ultimately break down. They just break into these small toxic microplastics, which actually takes about 400 to 1,000 years for it to break down into these small pieces. And so I think that's very surprising because consumers use plastic bags for about 30 minutes, and then it goes into a landfill where it will break down for the next 500 years. So I don't think that is worth the time that it takes to break down. And again, the waste buildup in the landfills, through the runoff, it can get into our water sources and soil. So now I want to move on to the suffering of the marine wildlife. The plastic bags that are released into the ocean can get consumed by sea turtles, for example, because they mistake them as jellyfish. So they're consuming these plastic bags, and then once it gets into their stomach, it blocks the rest of their digestive tract. So when they consume food after the plastic bag, the food and nutrients will not be able to move on to the rest of the digestive tract and will ultimately cause suffering and starvation and obviously death. So Ian Thompson, who is a founder of an ocean cleanup crew, he showed that 100,000 marine life die every year from plastic bags. And this is very surprising because it shows the dramatic reduction of marine animals in the ecosystem, and this will disrupt their marine habitat as well as the food chain that they are involved in. So now that we've seen the very negative impact plastic bags have on the environment, I want to move on to what are actions that we can take to decrease the plastic waste. So obviously the simplest form is to use reusable bags or no bag at all when shopping. This will decrease the amount of waste that is going into our landfills and also decreasing the size of our landfills, which will in turn cause a decrease in the amount of chemicals that are running off into our water sources or soil. So also when using reusable bags, it will decrease the demand for plastic bags that are being produced in the country, and then this will also decrease the amount of work that factories are doing because there's less of a demand for the production of plastic bags. So many countries and states in the United States have already put restrictions or fees onto these single-use plastic bags. Jennifer Schultz, with the National Conference of State Legislators in the United States, has showed that California and New York have already put bans and fees on these plastic bags, and it has already been shown to be effective in these areas because it's persuading more consumers to bring their own plastic bags. In 2019, Lawrence, Kansas had their own public hearings about placing restrictions and fees on plastic bags, but nothing has been set in place yet. So China has been one of the leading producers of plastic waste in the world. So according to BBC News, China banned all plastic bags in society because 2010, China alone produced 60 million tons of plastic waste that was released into the environment. And then after putting these restrictions on the plastic bags, starting in January, China has already seen a decrease by 66% of the plastic waste that is in the environment, which is about 40 million bags. So these restrictions are being effective in reducing the amount of plastic waste. So today in this speech, we highlighted the impact of manufacturing of plastic bags, the very negative impacts that the microplastics of plastic bags have on the environment as well as marine life, and then what actions we can take to decrease the amount of plastic waste that is produced and released into the environment. If US were to implement these same restrictions and fees nationally, we could see a decrease in the plastic waste release just like China did. So now I want to move on to our question and answer part of the speech. So the first question is, how is burning of ethylene gas during the production of plastic bags harmful to the environment? So ethylene gas comes from ethane, which is a naturally occurring gas, and it creates harmful emissions in the environment and the atmosphere when it is being produced into the ethylene gas. And so the breaking down of these fossil fuels creates so much unnecessary energy that is released into the atmosphere and the environment, as well as it impacts the ozone layer that we are all working to try and get much better, as well as, again, the air pollution. So question number 2 is, how can the reduction of marine life impact the lives of humans? So the reduction of marine life disrupts so many more things than people might think of, like the ecosystem and the food chain, which there will be the animals that they are eating will increase, and then all the animals above them in the food chain will decrease because they don't have the nutrients that they usually consume. And so this will cause an increase and decrease in the amount of population of the animals, and then this can also impact their habitat and other external factors that we may not think of. So the last question is, what do states do to actually enforce these restrictions? So California and New York, like I said, have already banned all plastic bags, and they have actually put a 5-cent fee on using store-provided paper bags. So it just persuades the consumers to bring their own bags by avoiding these fees. Also, New York still has in set their Reuse Recycle Act, which helps to properly dispose these plastic bags so that they can't get into other things. And then cities like Seattle have put actually 20-cent fees on both plastic and paper bags. And like I said again, China has banned all plastic bags, so all of these efforts are just to persuade consumers to bring their own bags and avoid the fees that are in state. Thank you.